women's access to jobs, training, leadership roles, and financial resources in industries that are critical to the fight against. Today, on Gender Equality Day at COP29, we invite all of you to join this effort. Through WISE, our global community of partners is promoting well-paying, quality jobs for women in green and blue sectors, supporting women-led and managed businesses, and eliminating barriers so that women can fully participate in industries critical to economic growth and the health of our planet. WISE is led by a broad coalition of government partners, including Australia, Canada, Japan, and Mexico, who are promoting women's employment and leadership opportunities in climate-related sectors, both in their own countries and globally through their development assistance. The WISE coalition also includes strong representation from the private sector. This fall, PepsiCo, Unilever, Danone, McCormick & Company, and Nespresso launched an initiative under WISE to strengthen women's economic security and enhance environmental sustainability in agricultural supply chains. And corporate and philanthropic partners, including Amazon, Reckitt, the UPS Foundation, the Visa Foundation, and the Skoll Foundation, are advancing the Climate Gender Equity Fund, which you'll learn more about today, to close the gender gap in access to finance for women-owned and led climate organizations. This morning, you will hear directly from some of these women leaders who are addressing climate change in their communities and defending the future of our planet. We thank them and all WISE partners for their commitment and hope each of you will join this effort to protect and secure our environment while building a more equal world. Thank you very much.
Today, as Jen mentioned, we will focus on the Climate Gender Equity Fund, or CGEF, a flagship effort under WISE to close the gender gap in access to finance for women-owned and led climate organizations. CGEF, which is led by USAID, Amazon, Reckitt, the UPS Foundation, the Visa Foundation, and Skoll Foundation, is a global public-private partnership supporting funds and organizations led by or that benefit women that are investing in gender-responsive climate solutions around the world. Since its launch 2 years ago at COP27, CGEF has awarded over $5 million in grants to 10 women-led investment funds and intermediaries. And with CGEF's support, these grantees have mobilized nearly $600,000 in additional investments to their businesses. To date, CGEF partners have raised $24 million, and the fund will award another round of grantees next spring. CGEF has already established a pipeline of over 600 gender-responsive climate solutions in emerging markets globally, demonstrating the tremendous need for this type of financial support. I am honored to be here with one of our most recent CGEF grantees, Priya Thadashi, the co-founder and CEO of Vilgrow Philippines, an early-stage gender-smart incubator that funds, mentors, and nurtures social entrepreneurs developing climate solutions. Vilgrow will use its CGEF grant to implement and manage a 24-month-long accelerator program designed to increase the capacity of businesses led by or that benefit women and address climate change and prepare those enterprises for investment. Priya is an entrepreneur, investor, and advocate for gender equality working across South and Southeast Asia. She is a tremendous leader and champion for this work, focused on unlocking capital for other women leaders. Priya, welcome. We'll have you on the stage. It is so wonderful to be with you. Hi, Priya.
Hi, Emily. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, of course. Thank you for being here. To start, tell us about Vilgrow Philippines' mission. How does this incubator work to advance gender equality and address climate change?
Absolutely. First of all, it's an honor to be here. Thank you so much for having me and, celebrating CGEF and grantees who are doing amazing work around the world. So Will Grow Philippines is a gender smart incubator. What that means really is that we fund, mentor, and support early stage businesses that have a direct climate and gender impact. We are quite a young organization. We've been around for the last 5 years formally, informally a little bit longer, like many women-led businesses are. And we've directly funded about 130 businesses so far. But 87% of these businesses are women-led or owned. And they have directly impacted more than about 18 million lives in the Philippines and around the world. So our mission is simple. We are, I'm an entrepreneur myself trying to support other entrepreneurs. And what we do is that we do believe that entrepreneurship has a huge role to play in all of these big intractable problems that are around us, and especially climate change. And we think that entrepreneurship is a secret weapon that we got to use more to really make the last mile grassroots more resilient and help us start small, but then scale up solutions that have direct impact. So that's what we do, Emily.
Wonderful. And what motivated you to start Will Grow at the beginning and pursue this career that is really dedicated to supporting and empowering other women entrepreneurs?
Yeah, I have to say that I never set out to, directly support women entrepreneurs. That was really my mission initially. Though I did grow up in a household of, grassroots activists, and that is so I was also quite privileged to being the youngest child in a family. And if anyone is the youngest sibling, you know that there are others who kind of trailblaze and clear the pathway. So I was actually fortunate to be able to pursue my passion. And that was really just defined as helping others and, making the planet better. And I've kind of found my way. I tried public policy for a while and then kind of discovered, social entrepreneurship. And once I got into the entrepreneurship space, what I discovered was that the systemic biases that are there in the financial system and in entrepreneurial ecosystems were really holding women entrepreneurs back. And it's really just through that lived experience of seeing what's happening. Originally I worked in India and then I moved to Southeast Asia about 10 years ago and, based in the Philippines and supporting entrepreneurs there and in the region. I saw that a lot of women-owned and led businesses existed. They were kind of stagnating, or they're kind of getting stuck, or they were not visible at all in rooms where there are lots of discussions, about opportunities. And women entrepreneurs are really kind of missing in any space where there was some power or some, agency to make decisions and help accelerate your businesses. And that's really kind of what made me rethink what I'm doing and, what my journey as an entrepreneur, helping other small businesses. And that kind of helped me redefine. I was really fortunate that at the time when I was kind of preparing or starting out, there were, amazing leaders like Suzanne Beagle and Joy Anderson who had already been on this journey of genderless investing and really thought leaders in the space. They were kind of visiting Southeast Asia to kind of, spread this mission of really how do we apply genderless. And that really helped me have language, because sometimes we don't know, what we're missing or how to visualize in a certain way when we are kind of, we're really in the depths and in the middle of like just day to day. So I think that really helped me kind of redefine as an incubator, as an investor, what I'm missing. And how do we really create a level playing field for women entrepreneurs? And now, I do see it as my personal mission to really address this unnecessary finance gap that we see for women entrepreneurs.
Wonderful. You actually began to touch on this, but can you tell us in more depth just what are some of the biggest challenges that you see for women-led businesses, particularly those in sectors that are addressing climate change and in Southeast Asia particularly? What barriers do these businesses face generally, and then what barriers do you see them face when it comes to accessing climate finance?
So, it's really funny. I was walking around COP and I saw a lot of beautiful and stark images which said climate change is real. this is not a conversation that we are having in Southeast Asia because we are living it. Southeast Asia is one of the most vulnerable regions globally. The Philippines is ranked number 1 on the disaster risk index. Just last week, there were 4 typhoons headed our way. And it's just not about extreme weather events. It's about, the sea levels around the Philippines coastal regions are rising 3 times, faster than the global average. We are facing, despite insane amount of rain, we are facing, water shortages by 2040. Our cities and towns are flooding. Farmers and fisherfolk are out of livelihoods. And so this is, so in our region, we don't have any debates or discussions about whether climate change is real or not. I mean, we are way past that because it is our daily experience. What we are seeing on the ground is that, again, we can't wait for anybody to come to help us. We have to help ourselves. And I think that is really kind of the spirit that we're seeing across Asia. And entrepreneurship, and we are seeing women entrepreneurs are real leaders when it comes to addressing and fighting climate change. As we all know, 80% of those who are displaced by climate change are women. And this kind of, if we kind of look at farming communities, fisher folk, indigenous communities, this is really the case. So what we are seeing is that more and more women-led businesses are starting and continuing or even adapting a climate change lens because we need to survive, and so that's what we're seeing. So now what happens when somebody is deciding, or even kind of fate has brought them into becoming a climate entrepreneur, is that there is a lot of amazing ideas and innovations that we are seeing on the ground, and there's a lot of amazing resilience, but they are getting stuck because they don't have the right type of support. So it's very easy for entrepreneurs, I would say easier these days to kind of start their businesses. There's a lot of conversation around it. But once you have to start growing your business, that's where all of the difficulty and the barriers suddenly start, stacking up. So we are seeing that women entrepreneurs face, 2 or 3 big problems. The first one is as simple as information asymmetry. They're really not in the loops and the rooms where access to these opportunities or information is, somehow staying within certain circles, which happens in, any ecosystem. There are silos. So you never even find out about opportunity, forget qualifying for them. The second is that, of course, the barriers to capital that already exists is quite high. For example, most loans, whether it's bank loan or other financial institutions, require collateral. Most women entrepreneurs don't have those assets that they can actually put up for that collateral. There is, varying interest rates, so we won't get into that. And I think there's a lot of discussion at COP around, putting people more into debt. So access to that. And also financial products that don't really kind of meet entrepreneurs, and especially women entrepreneurs, where they are. So this is really keeping them from, and I think what we are seeing in the Philippines is that everybody's really also accessing any type of financing off and just really trying to do with what they have, which is okay. I think that's really kind of, shows how resourceful and scrappy, entrepreneurs are, and they can be, and especially women entrepreneurs. But what it does is then it kind of limits the impact of what they are doing. So, for example, if it's a woman entrepreneur working, with an indigenous community, she may come from that community and, getting some of their products to market. It's kind of limited by what kind of income can be earned and, how many people she can impact, right? So that's where we're seeing that it's limiting the scope of both impact and the potential of women entrepreneurs. And it's because that you don't have access to the information, but not the right type of financing. Or the existing financial system somehow is stacked against them.
Can you tell us about one of the women-led businesses that Vilgro has supported? You've talked through these challenges. How have you worked with specific businesses to address those challenges? And how, if you could give us one example and then tell us a little bit more about how that business illustrates the importance and the impact of women-led climate solutions more generally.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me give you 2 quick ones, I promise. So the first one, let me share, is, what I just referred to. So Beth, who is an indigenous woman, founded an enterprise called Kabayagan Handicrafts. And she is from a mountain community in Rizal province in Palawan, a very beautiful, famous tourist location. So she is one of the first college graduates of her community. And all she knew is that she had to somehow generate income for the indigenous community that lives up in the mountains, because more and more of their land is being taken for agriculture, some of it, even illegally occupied. And the community itself actually protects the forests, and because that's the part of their life and livelihood, and it's where they live, it's their home. And so they are really guardians of forests, like many indigenous communities around the world. But what she did discover was that without generating income for those who are, dependent on nature, they have no choice but to give up the lands for many other things and being displaced from those lands and leave their homes. So she actually got access to a small government training program, and she decided to set up her business. So this community, together with her, they actually produce what you call, products from non-timber forest materials. And so they create, products, handicrafts, baskets, bags, the works, by using leaves and grass that's found in the forest, which is, regenerated by the community themselves. Now, what this does is, so you're thinking, okay, how does this really end up? So what this does is that, number one, it generates income for the community, so they can continue to do the work of, protecting the forests. Two is that they don't go hungry, because ultimately that is the only goal. I went up to the mountain community, which took many hours and then I kind of, chatted with them to find out, okay, what are kind of the aspiration? And I thought it was going to be about moving to the cities, or in the Philippines going abroad. It was really about just having 3 meals and the opportunity for their girls to go home, and a health clinic, which they did not have access to. So what this business does is not only using and regenerating products that are naturally found, but helping the community to continue to protect and continue to help them earn an income and not being displaced, because extreme weather plus over commercialization of land use is doing that. So that's one example of Beth. For example, being part of our program was the first time she'd gone to a city and used an elevator to go to a conference room, so she was doing what she could with the limited exposure, that she had. Another example is Kubo Modular. A woman-led business in the construction industry where you don't see a lot of women. So Kubo is really hoping to address the housing crisis and the issue, because as we all know, climate change and extreme weather really makes us reimagine the importance of climate resilient housing, because that's really what gets first affected. So they are using natural bamboo materials to build, modular homes, so that are simple but extremely resilient and strong, but affordable for those, in the last mile, in grassroots and smaller communities, and which are far more climate resilient. Now, for Zara, as a woman entrepreneur in a construction space, she has faced insane amount of biases that are there, visible and invisible. First of all, no one could believe that, she can close a sale, of a home. And they're always asking for, other male members of the team and things like that. But also, on the ground working with construction workers and, building a construction facility, continuing to, figure out how to get access to bamboo. These are, it's a very difficult space. And we don't see a lot of women. So she's really kind of leading the charge on building climate resilient housing, but also ensuring that there's a safe home for somebody, on the ground when they're facing these extreme events. Maybe not so short, but I hope it was an example.
No, those were wonderful examples. I mean, you illustrate 2 very clear examples of women that you're supporting and the work that they're doing to address climate change in a very local and particular way. Can you talk a little bit about the work that you did with them? Specifically, was it training? Was it financial support? And how do you assess what your different clients and businesses that you're working with need to really reach that next level and to scale their business and operations overall? Either of those examples, or if you have another example that you feel is illustrative, that would be wonderful.
So, like many capacity building programs out there, we do select, in a cohort. But 80% of our support is one-on-one, because each business and each entrepreneur's journey is quite different. And, even if we try to select at the same stage, the same industry, everybody's journey is quite different. And so we always start our program with, some grant funding to really test and validate and absorb some of the risk of the businesses at the early stages. So even though there might be a great idea and they might already have some operations, it does take a little bit of time to figure out what can really kind of scale up or, can really expand the impact. So that's one element of our work. But the support really is in terms of, we always start, I think you were asking me, how do you know, what they need? And we always start with a diagnostic, where we bring together a group of experts pertinent, specific to that business. And we kind of, deep dive into the business model with the entrepreneur and identify what are the gaps and what is their own priority. Because I think a lot of the times capacity building and support is quite prescriptive, where, you will get A, B, C, D. And they may or may not want it, but, they need the grant, so, they're in the program. So I think that is, one challenge that I do see out there. So we do try to start with the diagnostic and get buy-in, and we decide together with the entrepreneur on what should be the priority for the next year for the business. And then we bring in the experts and mentors to support that, because a lot of the early stage businesses don't have the financing to hire, the experts within their team. So we want them to leverage the support that they have to bring in that expertise to build their business. Now, this could be for a agricultural business. It could be somebody, an expert for that particular crop. We have, another nature-based solution that we are supporting, where they, the entrepreneurs working with the fishing community, and the fishing community, are using methods like dynamite fishing, etc., because there is no fish close by to them. So but they want to switch to sustainable fishing, and they want to help the community, but they don't know how. So they don't need access to experts that they cannot afford, for example. So that's the type of, specific support that we provide through that. And then, of course, the last piece is very much a dedicated support on investment readiness. And I know there's a lot of mixed emotions around what type of financing is okay. But because we are supporting businesses, they can access, loans, equity, grants, depending on where they are at. And so, but what we do find is that it's quite difficult for a lot of the entrepreneurs to navigate. Somehow the financial system appears and presents itself as far more complex than it is. So for a lot of entrepreneurs at the grassroots, it's quite intimidating to actually figure out how to really navigate that. So we help them one-on-one on preparing their business, fix their accounting, the books, all the boring stuff which entrepreneurs, are not as excited about, but very essential. And on the other side, then we also have an investment coach who works with them on, actually preparing the real materials, whether to talk to a financial institution or an investor, or even, a government body for a grant. All of these are different. And, and it takes a lot of time to raise money. And that means time away from your business, away from the impact. And that's what we really want to help facilitate.
And you yourself recently received a CGEF grant, so you're one of our grantees. How are you using that financial support from USAID to help other women-led businesses in sectors that address climate change? And what has that type of support just meant for what you're able to do within your own business and its growth and evolution?
Yeah, so we are one of the newest grantees of CGEF and very excited to be among, peers doing amazing work around the world. So for us, there are two parts actually to the design of the program. The first part is really, the program like what I described. We will be selecting 15 women entrepreneurs from around the Philippines, addressing, climate and health. At the intersection of climate and health. And what we are hoping to do is really provide this one-on-one support to take them to the next level, wherever they are. The second part of it is really focused on unlocking financing. And so we are creating a blended facility, a financing facility, with the support of the CGEF grant, So one of the interesting things is that financial institutions in the Philippines and Southeast Asia, and this may be the case elsewhere as well, there's a lot of liquidity in the market. And despite having priority sectors, sustainable finance goals, gender lens, gender responsive finance, all these terms and products are there if you go to the website of any of these financial institutions. But when we look at the capital going to women-led businesses, then, they don't really match up. Also, it's difficult to kind of find any real data, but everybody's meeting their goals, right? Or paying the penalty for not actually deploying the capital, which everybody's okay with. So I think there's a situation where we feel like there's a lot of liquidity that we need to really unlock and we can tap. So we are using the grant, a part of the grant, to create a guarantee facility where in exchange for a guarantee of a part of the loan on behalf of the women entrepreneurs, we ask for the loans to be collateral free because that's the biggest barrier for women entrepreneurs. The second is to provide competitive market rates. We don't want to spoil the market because sometimes grants are accused of doing that, but we do want the interest rates to be competitive, at par of the best rates available. And third, very importantly, flexible financing instruments. So what I really mean by that is a lot of the financial institutions, the product is quite standard. No matter what stage, what sector, you have like a monthly or a quarterly plan, and there's not much flexibility because flexibility takes a lot of effort. And so, why would you do it? So hence, we are coming in with the sort of carrot of a guarantee facility to say that, okay, but we will work with you to help create very fit for purpose financing for the women entrepreneurs. So we actually, from a previous support from USAID, we were able to pilot a facility, and it took me 4 years to get someone to finance it and, and to get it going and get a group of financial institutions to agree to this. Because, of course, when I first talked to everybody, they were like, okay, give us 100% guarantee. I was like, okay, but then what's the risk that you're taking then? It's all on me. But we've kind of, got into a very interesting model where we are doing a 50% to 15% kind of a sliding scale of a guarantee, where at the start of the loan, we guarantee 15%, and as the risk of the loan reduces, well, the entrepreneurs are repaying, we kind of bring that down. So it unlocks the capital for us to kind of, support more entrepreneurs. So we started off with maybe like 4 financial institutions. Now we have about 20. And now my problem is that I have to do the due diligence fast to bring more entrepreneurs. And that's what we hope to do with the CGF program is really trying to build that pipeline and prepare women entrepreneurs to access this financing. Because, of course, there's all the paperwork and stuff, but, there's also kind of, they never set out to think that they could ever get this capital. And so there's a lot of work to be done even in the mindset and, getting the business ready to get this inflow. So that's what the guarantee facility is, kind of an innovative part of the program. And we are hoping that out of the 15 women entrepreneurs, at least more than 50% will be able to unlock financing within the term of the program.
And you started to talk about this as well, but in addition to this, innovative financial solution that you're providing to the entrepreneurs you work with, tell us more about this 2-year, 24-month-long incubator that you're working on, and how does this connect with that investment initiative? What do the businesses that you work with who will go through that incubator receive, and what does their participation look like over that period? Also, what do you hope to achieve with that incubator for these businesses, both in the immediate term and then in the longer term as well?
So we're at the start of the program, so a little bit early, but actually the applications are just going to open up very soon. So we're at that phase, and it's kind of scheduled for the next sort of 2 years. So the first year of the programming is really the capacity building support and the preparation and helping these climate businesses really kind of become the examples and the role models that they could be. So many of them are still early, which means there's a lot of doubts and question marks around whether these will work. And, when we talk about climate entrepreneurship, it is quite a broad spectrum of multiple sectors. It could be renewable energy, waste management, working on biodiversity, other nature-based solutions, agriculture, regenerative agriculture, farm to market, storage, battery storage. So it is a whole gambit of what, how to address climate change, whether it's mitigation or an adaptation, affordable housing. So each of these sectors require different types of support and navigation. It's not, in the markets in Southeast Asia, also as a woman entrepreneur, as a business owner, it's not always easy to navigate, the market, last mile, if you have to distribute something to very far-flung, very fragmented islands, that's not easy. You may not have access to power, in certain islands. So it's not, access to some of the basic things of ease of doing business is not always easy. So that's the part that we'll be focusing on in the first part of the year. And then in the second half, we're really focusing and doubling down on the guarantee facility and helping women entrepreneurs unlock financing. Our hope is that, selecting these 15 women-led businesses working in climate is going to create a set of role models for the ecosystem. A lot of the work, so when we started working in climate about 4 or 5 years ago, we had to run hackathons to help people create business models. Today the landscape has changed because the intensity and the effects of climate change are felt, and we have so many entrepreneurs of all ages, trying to come into this space and create solutions. So there is no doubt of the number of entrepreneurs. It really is that how many of these solutions can actually get to that impact that we can create. And our hope is by the end of this 24-month period, we will have a good set of climate entrepreneurs, women-led climate entrepreneurs, delivering solutions and starting to scale up some of those solutions and creating lasting impact, both on climate but also on health outcomes.
Well, we're very excited to see how it plays out. Along those lines, as you look ahead, what would success look like for Vilgro and the businesses that you support within the next 5 years? What are some of those near-term goals that you have for your own business and then for the businesses that you support?
It is, as a young business owner or, young business ourselves as Vilgro Philippines, and we've sort of been on a bit of a journey to figure out and evolve as we go along. So 5 years, it seems like we should be just figuring out what we do, but it also has been a bit of an evolution because so much is changing, especially when you're working in climate change, when you're working in gender equity. The ecosystem is changing. The challenges, very strangely, are still the same, but, still getting more complicated and complex. And that can be a bit frustrating. But what we've done is, as a business, is that, of course, the core of our service is providing, the grants and the incubation or, the capacity building support. But we've actually set up an investment arm or to mobilize capital. So we've actually not set it up right now as a fund or anything like that, but really as a investment network, as a call to action to bring especially local capital together. And so that, that can be sort of blended with all of the foreign capital that's coming in, but also, back entrepreneurs locally. And so that's a piece of the work that we've just started building on, and the guarantee facility and CGF is really kind of accelerating that. On the other side, we've also set up a network for women entrepreneurs called the Nushu Network. Nushu was, and now not spoken anymore, but a language created by women in a rural province in China because they were not given the chance to educate themselves. So they came up with their own phonetic language to secretly discuss and learn from each other. So taking from that inspiration, we've also actually set up a network of women entrepreneurs because programs can end, but the needs and the support and the peer group needs to still, need that support. And so we're trying to kind of facilitate that through a network for women entrepreneurs. And I think as a, kind of where we are seeing it go is that it's great to provide advice and guidance, but we need to put the money on the table. And if that table doesn't have the money, we got to build our own table, right? And I think that's really ultimately where this is. We can say that we need all these solutions, all of these are great ideas, but if we don't back it with the right type of financing and support, it's just going to stay where it is. And, 5 years later, we're going to be having the same conversations. So for me, I have a team of 20. 99% women. We're working on the diversity issue on the other side. But an amazing group of, young people, I would say climate activists. They really keep me on my toes, and we're really trying to be progressive about what we are doing. And for us, it's really about really unlocking fit-for-purpose financing, and that's going to be our focus for the immediate future.
Well, that is all very, very exciting. As we close out the panel discussion, what is one call to action that you have for the audience that is assembled here and that you hope people take away from, your journey and what you've learned along the way?
I think, this year has been very interesting for me because, I've been traveling around the country and in the region and really visiting a lot of vulnerable communities where, climate change and adaptation is becoming so difficult and impacting livelihoods. And I think the resilience of people, is sometimes being taken for granted because the urgency, we are past urgency, livelihoods and lives are being affected as we speak. And I think that has been, so for me, and as complex as discussions and, what we can do and collaboration sometimes, it's not always, I think being in the impact space, we love to talk about collaboration, but it's not easy to make it happen. I think we have to stop taking the resilience for granted. And I think I would like to say that, especially for women entrepreneurs and women, it's not about asking for handouts indefinitely. We're really just asking for a level playing field. And so, really, my request and call to action is this is the time to make this change happen. We are running out of time, and women are at the forefront, are the change agents for climate change. So do support us.
Oh, well, Priya, thank you so much for your participation today, but most importantly, just for your ongoing leadership and perseverance in the face of what are extreme challenges, but very, very important and exciting opportunities. Can we have a round of applause for Priya?
We loved having you join us at the U.S. Center. Please remember to return your headsets as you leave.
To support women entrepreneurs. In India, we've awarded a grant to Achieving Women Equality, or AWI funds, which is a women-led investment fund supporting high-growth tech companies in India that are owned, led, or influenced by women, and focusing on climate and health technology. AWI funds, will back businesses creating positive change for people and the planet. They'll do this by investing in and providing technical assistance to 6 to 8 women, women-led and women-benefiting climate companies that are strengthening capacity of local accelerator programs through targeted support and conducting a fellowship program for young women climate professionals. And in Latin America, we're supporting Deakin Impact ILU, which is the first investment fund of its kind dedicated to advancing gender equity and empowering women across Latin America. We're very excited about these two opportunities to really continue to work internationally to invest in women as they look for solutions to climate. As we close out COP, I really do urge everyone here to join the movement to catalyze gender equity in climate finance and empower women and girls as powerful change agents in communities and in designing solutions to climate change. Thank you.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the U.S. Center and our event, America the Beautiful Freshwater Challenge, Seizing Collaborative Solutions. Now is the time to put on your headphones. They already should be on. If there's any problem, just raise your hand, and someone from the U.S. Center team will help you out. But it's our honor to introduce to the podium Chair Brenda Mallory, the White House Council on Environmental Quality.
Good morning, everyone. It's such a pleasure to actually be here and see this group on this particular topic, which is kind of near and dear to my heart. As the chair of the White House Council on Environmental Quality, I am pleased to be hosting this event with the Department of State. We have seen kind of the value both at the global level and at the domestic level of the efforts that are going on around protecting fresh water. And so it's been a real honor to kind of work with them and to work with many of our partners on this issue. Freshwater ecosystems, including rivers, lakes, and wetlands, play a critical role in mitigating and adapting to climate change and in feeding, sustaining, and protecting our communities. But despite its vital role, our healthy rivers, lakes, and wetlands are continuing to disappear at an unprecedented rate. To combat this, we must come together at every level to deploy innovative solutions to conserve and restore our freshwater resources, and we must work together to meet our ambitious goals. Over the past 4 years, under the leadership of President Biden and Vice President Harris, the United States has pursued the most ambitious climate change, conservation, and environmental justice agenda in its history, including historic water activities. During our very first days in office, President Biden established our first national conservation goal to conserve and restore at least 30% of the U.S. lands and waters by 2030 through locally led conservation and restoration efforts. So far, we have protected more than 45 million acres of lands and waters, including some of our nation's most treasured places, such as the Boundary Waters in Minnesota, Bristol Bay in Alaska, and the Everglades in Florida. And through our Investing in America agenda, we have invested tens of billions of dollars to make our communities more resilient to droughts, floods, and other climate impacts, including through nature-based solutions. Today's conversation will focus on partnership to protect and restore our freshwater resources. From our local communities and small businesses to national governments, everyone has a role to play. Last year in Dubai, I announced the United States was joining the Global Freshwater Challenge, partnering with 45 countries plus the European Union to protect and restore rivers and wetlands worldwide. The United States then launched the America the Beautiful Freshwater Challenge, which is our domestic version of the Global Freshwater Challenge. And in doing so, we established national goals to protect, restore, and reconnect 8 million acres of wetlands and 100,000 miles of rivers and streams in the United States by 2030. And to achieve these goals, the America the Beautiful Freshwater Challenge calls on all states, tribes, interstate organizations, cities, local communities, businesses, and other private sector entities to advance their own policies and strategies for conserving and restoring America's freshwater systems. We purposefully included partners from the private sector, philanthropic entities, and other non-governmental organizations because carrying forward this ambitious goal will require us to deepen existing partnerships and to forge new ones. We announced the partnership in April with over 100 inaugural members, and today the U.S. Freshwater Challenge has more than doubled to include more than 210 members who have signed on to support freshwater restoration in their communities. More entities are joining every day, including the National Congress of American Indians. So partnerships with industry, philanthropy, local governments, and non-governmental entities leads to critical investments and in continuing to advance our water conservation in the United States. So with that, I will pass the mic to Paula Martinelli, who will share more about the important community-led partnership that we have built through the America the Beautiful Freshwater Challenge. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair Mallory. It's a great pleasure to be here and to hear about the amazing progress that the United States has been doing in its efforts to protect and restore freshwater ecosystems. With ambitious targets that really have been supporting the global freshwater target for Freshwater Challenge. This country-led initiative aims to restore 300,000 kilometers of degraded rivers and 350 million hectares of degraded wetlands, as well as conserve intact freshwater ecosystems. Together with the United States, we have 47 members up to date, plus the European Union. And the most recent country to join was Panama at CBD COP, at the Convention on Biological Diversity, COP in Cali. And what we have been doing as supporting partners, so the supporting partners include Wetlands International, IUCN, the Nature Conservancy, WWF, UNEP, UNCCD, and we also have collaborating agencies such as the Convention on Wetlands Secretariat. We have been supporting countries in implementing their freshwater challenge ambitions and goals and national strategies, so also at the national level. We have been working with countries bilaterally, both at the global and national level, as I mentioned. So when country comes with us with their priority and needs, we try to find the right actors on the ground as well, if they don't know them already or if they already come with partners on the ground, and start talking about how they're going to implement the freshwater challenge. At the global level, we have been coordinating the member countries to enable more exchanges between them so they can learn from each other throughout the process of the journey. So, for example, this year in May, we had the first country meeting in Guam, where countries discuss topics such as resource mobilization, technical assistance, and the governance of the Freshwater Challenge, how this would move forward. And one of the things that we also discussed were the principles of the Freshwater Challenge, and one of the principles being a whole-of-society approach and whole-of-government approach, which we have been seeing that the USA has shown quite a great example so far. Also, another principle that we've been talking about is really showing leadership at the global stage, and some of the, quite a good number of the member countries have been showing this. Gabon, more focused on the Convention on Wetlands, and Brazil also been talking a lot about, the CBD, Convention on Biological Diversity. And I do think that at COP29, as Chair Mallory mentioned a little bit, one of the key aspects of it is climate adaptation. And when we talk about freshwater ecosystems, they are really key and central for climate adaptation. So it's really important that our member countries continue to bring this and elevate the freshwater ecosystem at this global stage, because without our freshwater ecosystems, it's very unlikely that we're going to reach any of the global conventions that we have been discussing. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Can you all hear me okay? I'd like to welcome our panel to the stage for the next portion of our event. So if you would all like to come up. So thank you so much, everyone, for being here today. My name is Ellen Ward. I work at the Pew Charitable Trusts based in Washington, D.C., and it's really my pleasure to be here moderating this panel this morning. So I'd also like to start by thanking Chair Mallory and Paula Martinelli for their thought-provoking opening remarks and for setting an inspiring tone about both the America the Beautiful Freshwater Challenge as well as the Global Freshwater Challenge to really frame the discussion that we're going to have this morning. And I'd also like to thank the organizers of our event, the U.S. State Department, and the White House Council on Environmental Quality for gathering us here today. So to start introducing our speakers, we'll start at the far end of the stage. Joining us is Dr. Andrew Deutz, the Managing Director of Global Policy and Partnerships at World Wildlife Fund. Next, we have Paula Martinelli, the Global Water Advocacy Officer for Wetlands International, which is the only global not-for-profit organization dedicated to the conservation and restoration of wetlands. And thirdly, joining us as well, we have Michael Alexander, the Global Head of Water, Environment, Agriculture, and Sustainability at Diageo, a British multinational alcoholic beverage company with headquarters in London, England, and 132 sites operating worldwide. So with that, I really like to emphasize how great it is that we have representation here from various parts of the water sector, which really is going to be helpful, I think, for having a good conversation this morning about the value of partnerships and working together to address the global challenges that we're facing. And before we get into some prepared questions and more specific aspects, I did want to open the floor for each of you to share a bit more about your organization and the work that you're doing on water that you'd like to open with this morning. Andrew, would you like to start?
All right, thank you. Well, thank you for convenience. I assume this is working? Oh, great, thank you. Let me just start by starting what I'm sure will be a chorus of congratulations to Chair Mallory and to the U.S. for joining the Global Freshwater Challenge and for launching, said in the next 25 years, up to half of the world's food production could be at risk because of water security issues. At WWF, we just released last month the latest update of our report looking at the health of the Living Planet report, which said that 85% of the populations in freshwater ecosystems have experienced decline since 1970. That's worse than marine species, that's worse than terrestrial species, that's not something we should be proud about. But the fact is, freshwater ecosystems are probably the most degraded and least protected of any major ecosystems on the world. And then there are the climate impacts, right? And we know most climate impacts are mediated through water. To put it bluntly, either too much or too little, or sometimes both problems in the same year because of changing cycles. So what we need are significant efforts at protection and restoration of freshwater ecosystems, and that means coordinated public and private action, both financial and political support, and probably most importantly, community engagement and community-led activities to protect and restore freshwater ecosystems. I think that's why the America the Beautiful Freshwater Challenge is so critical, because it provides the framework for all of those actions to happen in real places. So let me talk a little bit just about some of the work that WWF is doing in one of those real places, which is the Rio Grande and Rio Bravo River, which is home to 15 million people and one of the most critically endangered freshwater ecosystems in the world. And what I want to talk a little bit about is just sort of the framework of action that we need to see, that I think the America the Beautiful Freshwater Challenge provides. And it starts with a shared vision for the basin. And then the ability to provide the science, the adaptive management systems that we need, the financing that we need, and the policy frameworks. So to talk about each of those elements very briefly, we at WWF helped develop the first hydrological model of the entire Rio Grande, Rio Bravo basin and the subbasins, which is really critical to be able to convene stakeholders. There's nothing like a map to convene people around the place that they live to start identifying the problems. And that was then the basis for a report card on the upper Rio Grande, which was done through a participatory process. Because if you want to solve a problem, first you need to get, that's a multi-stakeholder problem, you need to get agreement on what the problem definition is. And so the report card process allowed us to do that, providing the science. And then the second is to start looking at what are the adaptive management strategies we need. As the basin continues to dry out, we need to figure out how do we optimize crop for drop. Because 85% of the water in the system is being used for agriculture. There's something like 2 million acres of farmland that are critical. By putting the science and the data on the table, you can start to have a conversation with farmers and other stakeholders around how do farming practices need to change, how does the crop mix need to change in a warming world to ensure future productivity and future profitability in the sector. We're starting now to see some interesting financial models that will help reward farmers for leaving some areas fallow to allow restoration, crop insurance programs that can help support long-term sustainability for financial purposes, but they're pilot programs. So we need to see those scale up. And I'll just say the last piece of the puzzle now is putting in place the policy frameworks that are going to allow the scaling of the pilot projects and the long-term assurances to farmers around freshwater restoration and around the financial models and crop insurance that allow for profitability and productivity into the future. So I just want to say again, like the America the Beautiful Freshwater Challenge sets the table for all of those elements and all of those stakeholders to come together. This is a complex, dynamic system, and you can't fix just one problem because it's a systems problem. You got to be able to try and solve multiple problems simultaneously. It's hard and it's complex, but you need that framework starting at the basin level, which this provides the framework for. So thank you. Let me
Thank you. And I saw a lot of nodding about the value of maps. So I think that we are on the same page in this group, as well as really the value of partnerships, which we'll have a chance to get into in a bit more detail. And I'd next like to ask Paula if you have some remarks you'd like to open with.
Yeah, sure. Can everyone hear me? Is it on? Okay. Oh, now it's better. I can hear myself now. Yeah, my voice, I basically lost it at this point after almost 2 weeks of COP, so sorry about that. But Ellen, thank you. You actually said already the key thing about the organization that I work for, that is really all about wetlands. But I think it's really crucial as well to remind people what wetlands are, what it includes is not. I think most people think a lot about swamps when they think about wetlands, but it does include mangroves, it does include peatlands. And peatlands in the context of climate change, they're really key because when you have healthy peatlands, they can actually be really good and efficient carbon sink. So in terms of climate mitigation as well, wetlands are important. I started talking about how wetlands are key as well for climate adaptation, but peatlands, which are around, if I'm not mistaken, 54% of the wetlands that we have in the world, those are peatlands. They're key for climate mitigation. So the work that we are doing has, it's twofold in that sense. We are really working to preserve, conserve, and restore wetlands in the context of both climate adaptation but also mitigation. And in terms of maps, actually, Wetlands International has also been working on the wetland map gap, where we are trying to map not only where we have our wetlands and the types of wetlands, peatlands, etc., but also to use that as a tool for decision makers, because the wetland gap map also is addressing the policy gaps that we see in these wetlands, in these areas that we are defining. So, there's a lot of also collaborative work that we have been doing with WWF and other organizations, and I think that's really where the power of all of this lies. Like that alone, we are not really going to achieve anything, but together we can really achieve so much more, and, our partnerships in that sense are really key and crucial. Thank you.
Thank you, Paula. And Michael, are there opening remarks you'd like to share about the work that Diageo is doing?
Thank you very much. So my name is Michael Alexander. I'm from Diageo. We're a global alcohol beverage company with brands like Johnnie Walker, Smirnoff, Bailey's, Captain Morgan's, Bulleit Bourbon, and many, many others, and Guinness as well. So we have a big footprint of water-using facilities across the world, as we heard earlier, about 130. And about a third of those are in the global south, so that will be in Latin America, Sub-Saharan Africa, India, and Asia. And about a third of our volume is made in very highly water-stressed parts of the world. So you can imagine we're a beverage company. About 80% of our product is actually water. We use the water in lots of other different ways during the processes. And importantly, as mentioned earlier, farmers that are providing our crops that we can make our beverages from use an awful lot of water as well, mostly unirrigated green water, not blue water. So we're heavily reliant on water. And when we look at our risk across our climate and our assessment of our risks, water and our impact and our reliance on freshwater ecosystems is our biggest risk. And those that know about double materiality and having to do that and report against that, and as far as corporate reporting are concerned, we have to report that our biggest climate risk is water, and we also have to report what are we doing about it. So just very briefly, you'd expect us to be doing in our own operations, the very best of best practice water management across our water use and reuse and water discharge, because it's water quality as well as water quantity. But perhaps more importantly is what we want to do and what we're aiming to do at a basin level. And that's why the Freshwater Challenge is so important to us, is a global North Star that we can get behind to build resilience and improve and restore freshwater ecosystems in the at-risk basins that we work in. So we are focused on the basins where we operate, where we have impact and where we're reliant on, and we need to build resilience in those basins through freshwater restoration. If we don't do that, we can't grow our businesses. We can't support farmers. Farmers can't grow their businesses. The communities we rely on, where our employees work, can't have a healthy, productive lifestyle as well if they don't have access to clean water and sanitation. And I think it's absolutely fundamental for us to demonstrate our commitment to helping restore that. We won't do it alone, and we can come to the question about partnerships and collaboration later. But it's absolutely fundamental for us to be able to work with multiple stakeholders across civil society, across government, across science and universities and environmental NGOs and others, the experts, because we're not the experts in freshwater ecosystems, we're the experts in making great brands, but we want to work with the experts to help and contribute to that restoration of those freshwater ecosystems that our business relies so fundamentally on. So thank you very much for inviting me today, and I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Great. Thank you all for those opening remarks. And we do want to make sure we have a lot of time for Q&A with the audience. Before we get there are a couple questions for the panelists as well. So I'll ask each question, and then it's really for each of you to answer as you would like. And the first one is, as mentioned, we've been thinking about the value of partnerships. And just in your opening remarks, we heard about so many different sectors of ecology and the natural world and society, cutting across everything from, clean water and sanitation, ecosystems, private industry, food security, the future of agriculture, and really, I think, as you put it nicely, Andrew, like water as the way that we see climate change being expressed in a lot of cases, really mediated through the hydrologic cycle. And so in that light, I wanted to ask each of you, what do you think are the best practices for the water sector and actors in the water sector to build those partnerships and build bridges across those very, in some cases, traditionally siloed or segmented parts of society? And are there any examples of good success stories that you'd like to share with the audience, or challenges that you see to effective partnership and collaboration that we should be focusing on? Thanks.
So if you go back 10 years ago, the term in vogue at the time was the water, food, energy nexus, which meant to get at the systemic complexities among, or the interactions between all these different things. But it's really hard to get your head around where is the intervention point in such a complex system? And people started talking at that point about, well, we need like a food, water, energy nexus impact assessment process. But it was really hard to get your heads around that. So the question then became, well, where do you actually intervene in the system? And I think, to me, the biggest evolution that's happened over the last 10 years is the recognition, and I'm coming from WWF, I'm coming from the environmental world, is the recognition of nature as a service provider. And in the water sector, particularly, nature as a service, an infrastructure service provider. So we've seen partnerships develop with beverage companies because, and it goes back to like the New York City watershed example, and then that's been replicated in dozens of places in Latin America, Africa, and Asia, around how protecting and restoring freshwater ecosystems and forests is a much more efficient, often, water quality provision mechanism than built infrastructure of building a water filtration plant. Like, if you get the formula right in certain places, you get better conservation, better fresh water, and cheaper beer. Like, talk about a win-win. The other example where I can point to is like the evolution in the thinking of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, who's really been a leader, together with institutions in the Netherlands, around engineering with nature. So if I can think back to World Water Forums years and years ago, where we showed up from the conservation world saying, like, hey, think about freshwater ecosystems as infrastructure, And we were the weird environmentalist off in the corner. But after a few cycles, suddenly like the water managers of the world and the water resources ministers of the world were talking about water or ecosystems as infrastructure and how you engineer with nature, room for the river, floodplain restoration as flood control management systems. And we've worked closely with the U.S. Army Corps engineers that went from the process of figuring out, first, how do we get allowed to think about nature and natural infrastructure solutions, to now we are required to think about natural ecosystem services and how we integrate the planning around both gray and green infrastructure and look at where's the right solution. Sometimes it's the green-gray combination, sometimes it's not, but at least having to always consider nature as part of an infrastructure solution. So it's that, the most important thing I think in that partnership development process has been the change in mentality to recognize we want to work with nature, not work against or just ignore nature. And again, point to different examples with beverage companies, with engineering companies, with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers as sort of the flagship in developing the practices around this.
Great. Thank you so much. Paula, do you have any examples you'd like to share with the audience?
I will come again from the global level freshwater challenge aspect of this, but what we have been trying to do as well, it is the engagement with the private sector. So we have been having conversations with the private sector. We had 2 meetings in this past year, one at World Water Week in Stockholm, and another one at UNGA, where we were trying to also get the views from the private sector on how we could together contribute to what countries have established as their ambition in protecting and restoring their freshwater ecosystem, which is also linked to what you just said, in seeing freshwater ecosystem as not only this service that they're providing, but where the water comes that is providing a service is actually around the freshwater ecosystem. So really elevating this as well with the companies. And this interest, and it was just mentioned, didn't just come from the NGO perspective. This was also something that was reached out to us, right? So this is something that I see as like a big momentum, and all these actors, also non-state actors, are really, going around it because it's very clear of the need and that this is a high priority for everyone, either for business to really, keep doing what they're doing, and for other sectors as well to have water for their own purposes and ambitions. So, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
Yeah, I think one of the most important things for us in terms of the Freshwater Challenge is the opportunity to partner with government and other stakeholders. It's fantastic news that in only a year there's 47 countries that have signed up to the Freshwater Challenge, and that's a real kind of a real boost to companies such as ourselves that want to work more with government. And I think that it provides that kind of fulcrum of focus, the Freshwater Challenge, for us all to get behind, if you like, versus what is a very complex and difficult to navigate area because it's so multidimensional. So for us, the opportunity to work at a basin level or at a country level, but mostly, water's global and local, but we're here because of the global bit, but the local bit is where the real hard work starts in terms of actually doing the restoration and addressing the risks in the basin. So it's a fantastic opportunity to align our strategy and our targets and our commitments with something that the local government or national government is also aligned with, which I think is hugely important. As I said earlier, we're not the experts, so it also gives us the opportunity to partner with other experts and stakeholders, if you like, particularly civil society and environmental NGOs and others that are much more knowledgeable than us on how to develop the proper solutions. And I think that opportunity to both work with government but also perhaps to encourage governments on policy as well. So you need the right policy and mechanisms in place, and you need the right regulation, you need the right investment plans and the finance structures to, I suppose, implement and to, improve the restoration of these ecosystems. And if we can encourage that at a holistic perspective, that is really, really important for us because, no one entity can do it alone. And I turn to, just as an example, we're a founding member of something called the Water Resilience Coalition, which is part of the UN Global Compact, and that was established about 4 or 5 years ago. And that has identified 100 basins around the world where we all want to work together, and it's aligned with the Freshwater Challenge, because obviously we want to restore ecosystems, freshwater ecosystems in those basins. That's not the only thing we want to do. We also want to prove capability in the water resources authorities, or we want to intervene with other policy and infrastructure investment plans. So that 100 basin, if you like, gives us another kind of opportunity to collaborate and to map, again back to maps, but to map where our interests are, and we're participating in about 6 or 7 of those basins in Mexico, in Kenya, in India, and other places. Those will be our priorities. And this 100 basins is a structure that supports the delivery of the Freshwater Challenge, but also provides the opportunity for companies and NGOs and civil society to work together to address the risks in those basins. So, the partnership piece is absolutely fundamental to achieving this. It's stating the obvious, but at a local level as well as a global level. And the Freshwater Challenge, I think, provides that opportunity to create those partnerships. And, for example, the Water Resilience Coalition is an existing structure that will jump onto the opportunity of the Freshwater Challenge to say, right, the delivery of this supports a country's commitment on the Freshwater Challenge. So we're helping the delivery of that, I hope.
Thank you all for highlighting those examples. And it strikes me that, we've been talking a lot about management at the basin scale, which is sort of this, indivisible unit in the way that we think about water from a management perspective, and the way that the Global Freshwater Challenge and the America the Beautiful Challenge give water managers and water users the ability to zoom out and learn from each other and have a collective ambition around water, and just the value that can bring in convening everyone and giving everyone something global to strive for. And I will turn it over to questions from the audience. I have just one more for you all. We are at a climate COP, and so I did really want to ask all of you about the way that you see water sector actors being able to engage on climate resilience today, in the context of sort of the partnerships we've been talking about, the basin scale management approach that's inherent to water, as well as this sort of global perspective that we're able to take here at the COP.
I'm going to take your question in a slightly different direction, because it would be really easy to talk. Well, because I think what's really critical for the water sector is the combination between water and climate, to think about it through the lens of risk. Because, as I said, many of the climate impacts are mediated through the hydrological cycle, either too much or too little, or, as I said, sometimes both in the same year. There are 2 things you can do in the face of risk. You can reduce the risk, or you can transfer the risk. And so I think part of the answer to the question is, number one, think about what are all the nature-based solutions and community solutions to reduce water risk at the local level. And then the second is, what are some of the innovative financing solutions, particularly around the insurance sector, that can help to transfer the risk. But also, when you think about the water sector through an insurance lens, it also is going to start disciplining us about what we build and where we build, and make some very different land use changes into the future. So again, I talked about you might want to change the crop mix in certain places. You might not want to build built infrastructure in certain places. You might want to say those floodplains shouldn't have built infrastructure, but they can be used for farmland, because you can do crop insurance in a way that in the long term is still financially feasible, but homeowners insurance isn't going to work there. So my point is, if we think about the water-climate connections through a risk lens, and then think about what are the tools for reducing that risk, particularly at the community level, and what are the tools for transferring that risk, and what does an insurance market do to discipline our land use choices around freshwater?
Thank you. Paula?
Yeah, I'll also bring a different perspective to that, a little spin, but also linked, because when talking about water risk as well, and especially coming from, let's say, government perspective of where they're going to invest, this is also about, how we are going to finance that as well. So it's also interesting mentioning the insurance sector, because there's also have been a discussion of how we bring the insurance sector into the conversation. But from a policy perspective as well, what we have been also talking to countries about in the Freshwater Challenge perspective is that having specific targets for freshwater ecosystems in their national strategies is also really key to be able to actually achieve get the financing that is needed to implement the nature-based solutions that, they might decide and define that these are key to mitigate risks in relation to too much water or too little water. So this has been key, and this has been a message that we have been bringing to countries. Let's have in the national determined contributions targets for freshwater ecosystem restoration conservation, but also in the NBSAP, so under the Convention on Biological Diversity, also in the land degradation neutrality target. So we're really trying to elevate, and not only just talking about like that's key, but also developing guidances or compiling a pile of all the guidances that are out there, so countries have access to this and are able to do another step to get to implementation and mitigate the risks that you're mentioning. Thank you. I don't need to give
Thank you. Like you, I think we probably see it mostly through a risk lens, as you could understand from a kind of commercial private sector perspective, is really to recognize that the biggest risk that we have related to climate is water, both in our direct operations to make the beverages that we make, but also, as I said earlier, in agricultural supply chains and other logistics as well. So recognizing first and foremost and disclosing that risk, and also actually under legislative in the UK disclosing the value of that, the value at risk associated with climate is really important. And I think where why we're at COP is we want to, and why Freshwater Challenge is so important, is because we want to raise the profile of water and climate adaptation as fundamental. Much of the conversations around climate mitigation, and many companies will focus on mitigation, their net zero plans and their transition plans, but equally important to us is our adaptation plan. And the national adaptation plans and the encouragement the private sector can give to governments, either through signing up to the Freshwater Challenge or to develop their national adaptation planning, is really important to us, because we can't do that. It's not our responsibility, but we can hopefully, from an economic development and GDP growth perspective, encourage governments to really be ambitious on their national adaptation planning, so that we can benefit from that, and we can also demonstrate how we can contribute in a very small way, how businesses and others can contribute to the implementation of those adaptation planning. And adaptation planning is about a lot, but a lot of it's about water, and a lot of it too little, too much, too dirty, whatever it might be. It's fundamental to us to encourage government, and COP provides that stage to do that encouragement, if you like, and just by being here and talking about water is hugely important. But again, back to the Freshwater Challenge, that's a government commitment that starts to ladder up into, with all the UN and other organizations with support on it, that really ladders up, and that gives us the kind of focal point to be able to focus our influencing, if you like, and our encouragement to take water, to elevate the issue of water higher up the UN agenda.
Thank you all for those insights, and I do want to launch from there into questions from the audience. So if you would like to ask our panelists questions, this is a good opportunity.
Thank you very much about this good conversation and the open dialogues to be capacity building. I would like to know how can going from local capacity building for individual in Arab country like Egypt. I'm Fawzi Yunus, professor in Desert Research Center in Egypt, and working capacity building for individuals there to more climate action and sustainability, to figure out the native solution from our community. And I would like to how can engagement local working action and global action to do more capacity building for their development country. And thank you so much.
Thank you for that question. Would any of the panelists like to reflect on that?
Yeah, I think it's a really important point. And when I mentioned the 100 basins and what we're doing around the 100 basins, I think it's part of that 100 basin approach is very much to build capacity. Now, that capacity looks very different in different places in the basin, but one we're particularly keen is to build capacity and build resource availability in the regulation of water as well. So those that are responsible in different departments in different states at federal or state level to enforce water regulation is really important to us, and to ensure that the law is abided by all water users, so that there can be a kind of level playing field for then engaging in proactive restoration activities. I think the capacity issue is a huge risk to water in terms of the availability of resource to manage water, both at a public sector and a private sector level. I think there's a lot to be said to be building capability as well from a very young age, and awareness about water, and through community activities and civil society initiatives is hugely important as well. But our focus in these collective actions is really to work with government and to encourage public sector to invest in capacity, to enforce regulation, to develop progressive policies, and to master plan, if you like, for the restoration and the resilience of those catchments.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions from the audience? If not, I would like to ask everyone to join me in thanking our panelists today. It has been really great to get your perspectives on how we can move forward and address the global challenges that we're facing. And I'd now like to welcome Chair Mallory for closing remarks. Thank you.
All right. Well, that was truly awesome. I have to say, the energy from this group of panelists and the understanding of the complexity of these issues just came through loud and clear, and it's really just a privilege to have a chance to sit here and think about the ways in which we can all collaborate together to address this very complex but incredibly important set of issues. So I just want to thank the group again. Everyone has really shown what is possible, which I think is something that in some ways these forums are so important for that, just to kind of revitalize our focus and our understanding of what we need to do and how we can do it together. So I'm just grateful for this panel for doing all of that. A couple of things that really just jumped out at me from the very beginning as they started talking about the power of partnership and the interconnection of the sectors. I mean, that immediately came through as soon as people started just describing what it is that they do. And then a couple of things that I heard that I love the idea of changing the mentality on working with nature. Great phrase. Might have to have a cup that says that, because I think that is such an important part of the shift that has occurred when we think about the water area and how we have to tackle that intersecting issues. Water, global and local, and from the work that presents opportunities for businesses to work with government and with other stakeholders. That a business saying they need government to do regulation is a thing I think we ought to have more emphasis on, because people seem to think that is not true, but obviously there's an important element to that. And then looking at the water and climate issues through the risk and financing angle, I think is really important. I think that the insurance element is becoming more and more critical, and in ways that is actually showing the problem. If we could kind of look ahead of that before we get to the place where insurance companies are refusing to insure in certain areas, that would help us to avoid some of these problems. So anyway, all of that is me saying thank you. Thank you for giving us some food for thought today. I think we are in such an interesting place at this particular meeting. I would say, having, coming from a country that just had a pretty impactful election, I think folks came into the building wondering what was going to be the vibe. And I have to say the vibe for me has just been so inspiring, because one of the things it has definitely shown is that there are so so many partners and so many stakeholders doing wonderful work, and the opportunity to see that work go on is, I think, really incredible. And so, while the next administration may pay less attention to climate action on the federal level, across the United States, as well as our partners across the globe, the work will continue. And so remembering that our water systems are connected and that they connect all of us, and building upon the progress that we've made over the past 4 years will require us to work together. And the United States also kind of welcomes this opportunity to expand our efforts with other countries and organizations who joined the Freshwater Challenge. So thank you, everyone, and have the great rest of your day.
Thank you, everybody, for coming to the U.S. Center. That concludes this event. Please leave your headphones on your chairs. Our next event is at 11:30 on advancing climate-smart transportation. Then we have a couple events in the afternoon, and then that's it. So if you want to say hello to the U.S. Center, make sure you do so by 3 o'clock.